Everybody, Creative Katie here, and today I'm making some fridge magnets with my Sassy Sayings sentiment pack. So what I've done is I've used my light and fluffy modeling paste and these Crafters Workshop stencils. This one's dotted rings, layered wallpaper, linked tiles, some of my favorites, and I'll put a link to those in the description box below. I put a coat of the modeling paste through the stencil, cleaned the stencils right off the bat, and gave this a good dry. Now this one I painted pink, and then I put the stencil back on and using a makeup sponge colored the stencil part to make it stand out. Just adding a little bit more pink to make it stand out a little bit. And then I'm going to splatter with white. I seem to be in a splattering mood these days. So each one of these magnets I'm going to do a little bit of a different technique. So there's some interesting stuff in them. Then I'm splattering with blue, bringing the blue from what I did on the stencil. Here's a color combo that I really like. It is the yellow-green, this one's Crafters Workshop, and light blue permanent. And I'm just applying this almost with a dry brush. And I'm working it into the stencil. I want this to blend a little bit, but I don't want it to end up being very one tone throughout the whole thing. I want to see some places that are a little more yellow-green and a little more blue permanent. And then I decide, I'm going to add a little bit more. I have a big wide space, so I put a little more paint, a little more water, and then I put the plastic wrap on there. Here is my favorite blue, my Prussian blue, and I'm putting a layer of that onto this 4x4 fridge magnet it's a canvas board that has a magnet on the back. And I'm just working this into the canvas. Now I'm placing the stencil back on top, and then I'm going to grab a baby wipe and I'm removing the paint from the texture paste. And I really like that effect. Now I could have put white paint through it after it dries, but I'm just removing the paint, and that way the texture paste or the modeling paste has a little bit of color on it, but not a whole lot. I'm splattering that with some pink. Now with this one, I decide that I want to have a black background. So I'm just using black acrylic paint, and that's what's in that little cup. I just cleaned out a tube, that's why it's there. But you could use black gesso if you have. And I'm just working that in. Now what I'm going to want to do here is basically reverse the stencil, so all the grout lines are going to be black and all the parts that have the texture paste or modeling paste are going to be bright colors. Now in order to get those bright colors, stand by. So there we have a little more texture. Kind of lost a little bit of the texture, so I'm coming in and I'm just using the teal, a darker teal that I mixed by mixing my paints, and just putting that on just to get that contrast because it was just too blah. And then I put some of that on other places that don't have texture paste, and that's one of my tricks too. Some areas are raised and some aren't, and that gives two different effects on the same canvas. And then I'm just edging them all to frame my little mini piece of art. And sometimes I go with the black, and sometimes I'm going with whatever the darkest color is on the canvas. So I'm getting these ready to use to sell in a craft fair. And so, kind of doing multiples at one time and doing it a little bit assembly line saves time and cleanup. And if you're splattering, you can splatter all of them at the same time. If you're using the same colors, you do all your edging at the same time. But if you're just starting out, don't think that you have to do 4 of them. So I take some white gesso or white acrylic paint, and I put the stencil back on and cover it with white. And I debate right now leaving it black and white because I really like that stark. But my plan was to have bright colors. So now I'm coming in with some quinacridone magenta, and there's the light blue permanent. Some places where they're meeting the wet paint, it's making a violet or purpley color. Now, not all stencils are easy to find and reposition, so I deliberately chose one that I knew was going to be. So here I'm going to splatter all of them with gold, and this is that assembly line effect, right? I have some gold paint that I've thinned down and I put in that cup because I'm doing a lot of splattering with gold these days, so I didn't want to mix it up every time, and I wanted to minimize the cleanup and the work. So I got out my Julie Nutting dolls and I've stamped on gel prints the dresses, and I just painted the skin tone and the hair, and then I'm just applying the dresses. It's a great way to use up those little bits of gel prints or colored papers. I just have a stash of them, and then when I go to do something like this, I just grab. And they make some beautiful designer dresses. Who knew I'd be playing with paper dolls in my 50s, right? So I kind of coordinated the dress with the background, most often using colors that are across the color wheel from the background, because I know those are going to stand out together. So what you're looking at here are my Sassy sayings. Now this sentiment pack, it's a digital sentiment pack. They are available, and you can get the information on this pack and others by emailing me at creativekatie@gmail.com. Once you get the digital pack, you can print it out as many times as you want on whatever papers you want, and you can make your own fridge magnets or craft fair items with that pack. So I cut out the sentiments, and I'm just applying that with gel medium and the doll. So here I have the pink dress, and that's why I did the pink splatters. Sometimes it doesn't pay to try to make things straight. Going at different angles gives it a kind of funky feel. So there we have all 4 of them. Now we're ready to do some finishing. And I just grabbed my fine line bottles and I'm edging this in gold. As I said, the stencils that I've used, as well as the fine line bottle, links can be found in the description box below. Now, because you have texture in the background, it's difficult to use the fine line bottle, so you have to make allowances. I'm not trying to be perfectly smooth, so it's a little more sketchy. And then this one, gold wouldn't show well here, so I go to black. Now, whatever I've done on a 4x4 magnet, you could do on a 5x7 art journal page, on an iCAD, on a small canvas. You would just end up having the complete Julie Nutting doll, and maybe your sentiment would be a little bit bigger. And here's another example of just doing the same step at the same time on all 4 of them. The gold here goes really well with the yellow in the dress. Stay and look at the close-ups of the finished projects. Thank you so much for watching. Which one of these is your favorite? Give me a thumbs up, leave a comment in the comment section, share with your creative friends. Bye for now.